window that we can provide, and we can do that because we have growers all around the county and even a couple up in Riverside. So we're trying to do what's best, not just for the growers, but also for consumers.
And yes, go ahead.
Well, you know, I'm feeling a little bit vague because I know you're saying you're doing it and you've got the thing set up, but it hasn't really gone out yet. So could you list all the ones you're actually doing something, like you said you're doing it with Whole Foods, or you're doing it with Henry's?
No.
It's actually kind of really just a, I don't know what the phrase would be, but it's kind of like a pilot program, working with Whole Foods.
Just the one in La Jolla?
Both, Hillcrest and La Jolla.
Okay.
And so that's kind of our pilot program. I mean, as Jonathan says, it's been 2 years in the works. It's going to be a little bit more like the 18-wheeler going down the road as opposed to like on your bike and making a U-turn, because we're going to try to get as many farmers together, and you're going to try to start hitting these huge institutions, which also move very slowly. There's a lot of bureaucracy, and that's even the thing with us. There's going to be bureaucracy because it's going to be a collaborative, it's going to be a cooperative, and so you want everyone to feel like they have a say. And that's really important because the farmer oftentimes does not feel like they have a say, so that's vital. But that also means sometimes that you move very slowly. But we meet on a monthly basis, and we've been talking with San Diego Unified, and when we met with them in February, we met with them when Chef Ann Cooper was here. I don't know if you're familiar with Chef Ann Cooper, the Renegade Lunch Lady. Albert Einstein Academies won a nationwide talk from her, and we did it in conjunction with Whole Foods. She spoke at Albert Einstein. A bunch of chefs redid traditional school lunches. The kids got to vote. It was great. And she also had a talk at the Natural History Museum. And, you know, people are saying they don't want that in their school lunches anymore. And San Diego Unified School District very graciously met with us and really took it on the chin, because they're not very popular. And a lot of people think it's their fault that the food that's served in the schools, that's their fault. But they really have their hands tied too, because they only get, it's like $2 per kid per meal.
That includes the cost of labor.
Right. That's the food and the labor. I mean, how do you make food for people for $2 that they're going to eat? I've got 2 3-year-olds, and I'm here to tell you, I grow great food. They don't eat any of it. They eat my strawberries. That's what they eat. But they don't eat it. So what do you get the kids to eat? Especially, you know, like the K through 7 is one hurdle, and then you've got like the junior high kids and then the high school kids. You know, their palates are a little bit more developed in high school. They eat a little bit more. And so San Diego Unified met with us and took it on the chin, like I said, and got a lot of, hey, you guys are doing this and that. And so at our next meeting in March, 2 representatives came, and they said, here's what we're willing to do. Here's what we can do to help move this forward. They have to have processed food. Some of it is very highly processed, like apples peeled and sliced in a plastic bag, or carrots sliced in a plastic bag already. They have to, because the kids pass out the food, right? The kids playing on the playground, and then you come back from the playground and you eat breakfast and the kid's passing out the food. Well, you don't know if that child has washed their hands. They can't be touching everybody's food, so it's got to be in plastic. But they were willing to meet with us to talk about whole food, like an apple or an orange, or other items that they could put on their menu that didn't have to be processed. And so, you know, that's a step. It seems like it's not a big deal. You know, we want to go from 0 to 60 in 6 seconds, but that is a step. It means that they're willing to work with us. And unfortunately also in San Diego Unified's case, they are a separate entity from the school board. That's right. Correct. And so they get their money given to them, it's allotted to them by the school board. So they just kind of, they're just begging for alms. They just get what they get. And the school district is, if you know, is in a big deficit. So they're taking money from the food program to pay the teachers.
I just have 2 quick questions. One, how do you see crop planning? Like if you guys know that you need to provide how much, how are you going to figure out like, how farm's going to provide? Is it going to be something initially that you discuss, or at the end when close to harvest, farmers are going to say we can provide this? And also, who's going to be doing the marketing, or how do you see the organization of the marketing and the funding for it?
Well, in terms of marketing, the 2 staffers that I'm going to be bringing on, one to work directly with the institutions, but then the market manager will be working with other buyers, like chefs and retail grocers, who are more flexible in their purchasing.
The scheduling has to happen way in advance. Right. That's not just going to be like, ooh, I got 1,000 pounds of collards I got to offload onto somebody. So especially for like the school districts or anything like that, you have to bid ahead of time to them. So you have to know a year or 2 years in advance how much they need every week over an X amount of time. And like Jonathan says, each farm has their own conditions. So you have to know your harvest schedule, what you grow, when you harvest it, and how long your harvest season is. And then what we did with Whole Foods is there's just a master calendar. And Whole Foods kind of had a list of items that they hoped to receive. They also put the onus on the farmers to look for, they're trying to develop an heirloom schedule. They want heirlooms, that's what they want. So they put the onus on the farmers to also look for different heirloom varieties in addition to the ones they were already familiar with. And so then at that point, kind of every farmer was like, oh, I can grow white icicle radishes and I can grow them from June to August, and I can provide 100 cases a month. And then you would kind of fill in on that spreadsheet, and it kind of went around to all of us, and that's what we did. So for Whole Foods, that's how that went, and I imagine something similar would happen if we were to get into something like a school district that needed a bid.
Right. So with schools and other institutions that have set menus, making sure that, we're going to have much more restraints on products to grow for them. They don't want
collard beans?
Probably not. But it's also important that if we produce a lot of a certain type of product in San Diego really well as growers, that why are you sourcing this product when you can have this instead? How many does anyone have kids in school how many persimmons are on school lunch menus?
Never.
Yeah. Why not? Why
or
not?
Figs.
Yeah.
Well, why not is because my husband was a food service specialist in city schools for 17 years, and there's a real ethnic blend here. And parents will actually come to the school and say, what is this? What is this? Kids have never seen a persimmon, and there's a very transient population here of ethnicity. And so that's a factor. I have a question, though. You can only... The problem that the schools have is how much kids throw away.
Yes.
Simply because they never saw persimmon,
That's right.
And so that's a real big deal. I had a question, though. The school system is subsidized by the government, like cheese. They're giving cheese. They're giving chicken McNuggets. And they're subsidizing other farmers by subsidizing this big institutional program that you guys are talking about, turning the Mack truck around. That is part of it, all these subsidies that they get. And that's why they can afford to feed a kid on $2. That's right. Because the other $3 on the plate is subsidized with the cheese and the chicken McNuggets. So that's how they operate. Well, if Mrs. Obama is so, impressed about childhood obesity, she's the one that could start talking about turning that aspect of subsidizing around and redirecting those funds to the local farmers who give fresh food.
I agree. I'll get in a second. What we want to do, what I expect to do through this, is that when that huge shift occurs, we're there. Hey, we're already doing this. Like, we're already sourcing local product to small school districts, to retailers and restaurants. Like, we are set up and ready to go so that when there is subsidies or the system changes in terms of allocation of funds, that we are there and ready to go, and we're not just talking about it. And that's how we've approached